So what did I spend $10,000 on in the stock market? What did I invest in? I invested $10,000 today. This is September 17th. This is the day of the Fed rate cuts, but I'm 12 hours ahead because I'm here in Tokyo on a 2.5 week long business trip. I was just in Switzerland. I was in Colombia. I'm going to Norway. I'm going to Iceland. So I'm traveling quite a bit. And I have a lot of time to think about a couple different factors with our financial setup that we have. And my wife and I, 2 days before heading over here to Tokyo, we finally closed on the $1.2 million property that I've shared in previous videos on the channel. And so I want to cover what's that $10,000 investment that we made today, okay, September 17th, 12 hours before the rate cuts. So you're going to find that out. You're also going to find out how I think through the different aspects of how we set up all of our assets, how we set up all of our investments as well. So make sure that you like, you subscribe, ring that notification bell, share this with your friends, comment down below what you want us to cover, what you want me to cover, and I'll try and get deeper into some of these topics if you like that. So some of the factors around this and investing in that $1.2 million property, I spent a decent amount of cash, right? We had to put a decent amount of cash down. We have a lot of equity in other properties. So my wife and I own, a couple different investment properties, a couple different properties that have commercial, a couple different properties that have agriculture. And so we can bring in a decent amount of equity, but at the same time, when we made that investment, we spent a lot of cash. And so right now, what I'm doing is I'm setting up this cash and I'm saying, okay, how can I divvy out, let's say $10,000 to $15,000 in our account that's $800,000 on Vanguard, and say, okay, I want to set this up so that I spend $10,000 into this specific play before the rate cuts, and then I want to see what happens over the next 2 weeks. And then the beginning of every month, usually every other week, I put in a certain percentage into my Vanguard account. And so I did want to come up with a video on that, by the way. If you guys want me to cover how much you should be investing on a weekly basis, let me know. So it reminded me when I'm laying all this stuff out and I'm looking at our real estate, I'm looking at our crypto investments that we have, which are starting to grow substantially now. And I'm looking at all the stuff with our business and I'm thinking through the lens of, okay, I want to have these defensive plays set up. And when I'm setting this stuff up, I started to think through the lens of, I remembered, when the New England Patriots were down 28-3, and they're in the midst of the Super Bowl, they're getting curbed by the Atlanta Falcons, and all of a sudden it's 28-6. Then it was 28-14. And then they just kept chipping away, and they're chipping away. And you could just sense the defense for the Patriots was really starting to play lights out. They really had made great adjustments. They were starting to stifle Matt Ryan, and you could just feel that their defense was doing phenomenal, right? And so you had this sense, okay, it's really, really important. I remember my dad saying, oh, yeah, see how important it is to play great defense. Defense can win championships. And this is a conversation we had, when Ray Lewis was winning Super Bowl titles with the Ravens and Trent Dilfer and freaking Joe Flacco were their QBs. Now, what does that have to do with money, right? Is that I think it's really, really important to think through what these defensive plays might be. And oftentimes, we get enthralled with real estate. We think real estate's this way to make tons of money, and it's not. But it's genuinely not. I think it's one of the most overrated things that you can do is to spend a lot of money on real estate. And I want to go into a lot of this stuff in other future videos. But I think real estate's insanely overrated, and I own a lot. But where I'm going with this is it can be viewed as a defensive play. Okay, and so I look at real estate in that light. Okay, now, where does this relate to the New England Patriots? You could just sense throughout this entire game, the momentum was starting to roll. Okay, you could sense that Tom Brady was starting to get his feet under him. You could feel that the defense was starting to get recovered. They weren't on the field as much, and you could feel the pressure on Brady, and he would roll really, really well with his pressure, and then all of a sudden that offense started to do its thing. And the offense could do its thing because the defense was doing its thing. And I like to think about this where if you look at real estate and you even look at like your earned income, really that's the defense, right? Like, how much money are you making, okay? And then how much money are you spending? Those things have to be figured out for you to be able to get on the offense in all reality. And so where this goes with this $10,000 investment is that I started to think through this, and I was exposed to a specific asset that Victoria Media, who's somebody on YouTube that I've been following for a while, she had talked about. She was the first one that I saw talking about this, probably like, honestly, 6 or 7 months ago. And I started she had done like 2 or 3 videos on it, and then about 4 months ago, she did another video on it. And so I started to think through this safer play, and I started to think through the momentum that she was mentioning. And where I'm going with this is like in my stock portfolio, I've got AMD, okay? And I've talked about AMD multiple different times. And I'm probably going to buy more AMD around the end of September, early October, depending on what I think happens. Amazon, okay? Bitmine Immersion, I do own this. I'm not sure how it's going to play, but I like to think through all these stocks, what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. Okay, then I have ELF, Google. These are 2 stocks I've mentioned. Nike, Nvidia, SoFi. I did make one dumb investment in Honest. It's not dumb, but I really want to think through. I'm still thinking through Celsius. I'm still thinking through Adobe. I'm still thinking through Cheesecake Factory, but probably just going to lean towards Celsius. Now, I've been playing around with this. I like to look at my real estate and my businesses sort of as like this third ETF. So I have VOO, which is the S&P 500 on Vanguard. And then I have SCHD, which is sort of like that value, stable, safe play. When the market goes down, SCHD is going to ride. Okay, so that's sort of where I looked at it as like these are the 2 stable ETFs that I got 160K, 180K in VOO. I've got 160, 170K in SCHD. I'm going to ride with it. But then another video came out from Victoria Media, and it's on SPMO. And so I started to look into this ETF, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, the management fees are cheap. Okay, it's riding really well. Okay, it's on a downturn, it doesn't drop as much, like 10%. A lot less of a drop when it's in comparison to VOO or the QQQs. So as an ETF, I'm looking at it, I'm going, okay, then in 22 to 23, you can see like the rebound after the bad year in 22 wasn't fantastic, but you're looking at this and you're going, okay, SPMO is the top 100 companies in the S&P. And what they do is they take the last 14 months, they cut off the last 2 months, they look at the previous 12 and how well they're growing and how much momentum is behind those stocks. And then every 6 months, they rearrange it just a little bit based off of their formula. Okay, and so you start to see the growth of this. And when you're looking at a space like AI, which I think is going to have a substantial growth period for the next 5 years, because I think there's going to be a lot in energy, there's going to be a lot in the financial market. We're going to start to see JP Morgan and these other companies that are financial, that they're all financially based. They're going to start to trade like tech companies because they're starting to change the way the financial institutions are set up because of AI. Okay, then we're going to continuously see stuff like robotics and taxis and all of these things that AI has a huge impact on. Medical, it's just going to be it's going to be longer than I believe people are recognizing. Okay, I think in 2030 we will be at a crazy place in relationship to AI. And so what I think that this does in the regards to SPMO is you're seeing these momentum stocks are going to start to grow pretty substantially. And as AI and as companies get better at increasing their profits from AI, it's not going to be great for the economy, but it's going to be pretty good for those specific market areas, for those specific momentum stocks. They will be increasing their profits and their revenue, and they'll start to ride quite a bit. And so I put $10,000 into SPMO, and what I'm really thinking about is I'm starting, because of this, now I have 3 ETFs that I'm playing with, and I'm really going to be much more of a stickler with my classic stocks because SPMO buys me a lot of that momentum ride. And so as I'm thinking forward on this, I might readjust. So I've got about $30,000 cash on the side because we just put so much down for the $1.2 million property, and we're going to be building a house. We're going to be building a facility there, a bunch of other stuff, business related. And so my cash is going to be tied up over there, but I want to make a really good decision here this fall and slowly start to put some other money, some more into AMD or SoFi or even into ELF. And so as I'm doing that though, I might be rearranging VU slightly to play a little bit into SPMO and go with that momentum stock or that momentum ETF. And so that's that $10,000 purchase is in SPMO. Hopefully I get that New England Patriots momentum to ride. That's how I'm thinking through the other stocks. That's how I think through crypto. And what I do inside of when we base down, and every single month my wife and I have a meeting where we go through, okay, what are the assets that we have? Crypto, real estate, vehicles, everything, stocks, ETFs. We list everything out. And then we start to look at the percentages. So we know the percentages, and we don't want those percentages to get too out of whack, looking at our cash as well. And then that's how we break everything down, all the while investing in our simple IRA, making sure that we're fulfilling the Roth IRA, just as that cheap way of making sure everything is level. But it all starts, guys, with you. The biggest thing you got to do is figure out how much you spend every single month and figure out how much money you make every single month. Save that first month. Try to get 6 to 8 months saved up. Make sure that you're investing in that employer matching accounts like a simple IRA, a 401k, whatever it might be, and then keep building that up over time. $10,000 into SPMO. I hope this helps somebody out there and you enjoyed that thought process, that thought experiment. Until next time, peace.